Well, dark days for the Republic indeed, my friends, as yet another cherished institution crumbles into dust. I'm speaking, of course, about Florida Man. You know, Florida Man. Florida Man is the guy who will drive up to a McDonald's window naked and attempt to rob the store armed with only a rubber duck. That guy. Florida Man apparently has taken a back seat now because what we're finding more and more is that Florida Man is guy by the name of Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis, more than anybody in the country, seems to be doing things so well that we may have to retire the entire Florida man meme. Everybody, I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this episode is about the Florida governor stepping up yet again. Just to recap, we can remember that he was the one who seemed to be showing a great deal of pragmatism in the entire COVID pandemic. He has an extremely large number of retired people in South Florida, especially. Florida did as well as could be expected in that situation. We can also remember that Florida did the election count without stopping, without blackouts. The very populous state, it got the results in accurately, got them in on time, and no problems whatsoever. Ron DeSantis is the guy who's been cheerleading the opening of the state in a rational fashion. And now Ron DeSantis is saying, well, if the federal government won't do anything about these tech giants, then Florida will. Steve, what the governor is proposing is basically a state legislation, as I understand it, saying that, hey, no, of course you can have Facebook here in Florida or YouTube, but if you're going to have YouTube coming to us through local internet service providers, then Florida residents are going to have to tick a box that says that we do not want to be subject to YouTube's selective algorithms and its censoring, and we'd like to opt out of that, please. They just recently turned the wrench on us, by the way. If you've been a follower of our numbers at YouTube, about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, they just suddenly, all of them dropped in half. It's about the fourth, fifth time that's happened to us. So what do you think about this, Steve? Do you think it's practical? Do you think it's enough to fire a shot across their bow? Do you think he's going to pull it off? Because I just get more impressed with Governor DeSantis every single day.
Yeah, me too. His response to the pandemic has really been, without a doubt, the absolute best of the nation. And I think this is the most important thing. It's also been the steadiest and in a positive way.
Consistent. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, okay, Gavin Newsom, he's been very consistent, consistently awful. Same thing could be said about the other two worst governors in the nation, Andrew Cuomo and Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. His steadiness has been a great example, and not what you expect with the whole Florida Man meme, which is so much fun. You know, I write a fairly regular column over at PJ Media called Florida Man Friday, and one of the reasons you get all these fun, crazy stories is Florida has the nation's best sunshine law. That is, anything that's a public record has to be made public, whether it's mug shots, arrest details. It doesn't matter what it is. It goes to the public immediately. And that's why we get all these great news stories that are so much fun out of Florida. In fact, I've got a few rules for what makes a great Florida Man story. First responders, naturally, personal injury, drunkenness, drugs. Did I say public nudity yet? That's usually a good one. And my personal favorite is always when they steal the police car, because I want to, where are they going?
Wherever they're going there fast, because you know they got the siren on and the lights too.
And I love these stories. In fact, it's not going to take me that much longer before I can do a best of Florida Man Friday that's going to consist of nothing but criminals escaping in the police car, and it's going to be epically good fun. But that is not Ron DeSantis, and we have a really serious issue with the tech companies. I've written about this, and we've talked about this before. But when it comes to Google and Facebook, particularly, consumers no longer have what I call a consumer veto. That is, you don't like the restaurant down the street because they gave you bad service. You don't go to that restaurant.
That's exactly right.
You don't like the selection at this store. You don't shop at that store. But if you're on the internet, Google and Facebook make money off of you, period. It doesn't matter if you aren't on Facebook. Your wife or your girlfriend or your best friend tags you at a restaurant. Boom, you're a data point. Data is how Facebook makes its money. If you don't use a single one of Google's free services, they still make money off of you because it's impossible to use the internet without being many of Google's data points, up to 100,000 queries a week that Google nails on you, again, even if you don't use their services. So without that consumer veto, our preferences no longer matter. We're the ones with the dollars. We're the ones that are supposed to determine the winners and losers in the marketplace. But that is no longer the case with these two giant companies. And I don't know if what Ron DeSantis is doing is the right solution, or whether it's will be the most efficient or effective solution. But I do know that we have 50 laboratories of democracy in this country, and that everybody ought to be cheering on these state governments to do what Washington is too hip deep in Google and Facebook's pockets to do for themselves.
Yeah, Scott, your series over at PJTV Freedom's Charter, your understanding of the structure of this country is just astonishing, second to none in terms of people I know. And it has always struck me that whenever the federal government seems to be going down the wrong path, the only political entity that has the muscle to actually put a stop, or at least have some sort of significant influence, is the actual states. The states still, despite the 17th Amendment and the destruction of the Senate as the House of the states still have an enormous amount of power over what they do. Putting the technical issue aside, the technical issue of saying, well, this can only Florida residents don't have to deal with these things. Putting that aside, assuming that engineering problem could be solved, do you think that Governor DeSantis has the number one, the legal ability to do this, and number two, does he have the moral ability to do this? Is this what individual states and individual state governments is all about?
I think because it falls into the realm of interstate commerce, in fact, beyond interstate commerce, that it's going to be difficult to enforce something like that within a particular state, although there are internet merchants that have to collect sales taxes in some states, but not other states, and they have found ways to handle that. So technically, it's a problem that could be solved. I think that probably the utility of what DeSantis is doing has more to do with obviously any future political ambitions he has, number one, but number two, the possibility that other states would get on board and essentially put pressure on the big tech companies to be much more open about how they use your data, how they get permission to use your data. And it's really been one of those things where we have just been so immersed in this idea that there are people who are constantly marketing to us because they know our proclivities and they're steering our proclivities, that we become accustomed to that. It's like the water that we swim in. We're fish and we don't even realize we're surrounded by water. And I think anybody who steps up and gets us to think more intensely about that is a good thing. And so what Governor DeSantis is doing, I think, is helpful. I mentioned in our backstage show that right before we recorded today, I was looking at Twitter for the first time in, I don't remember the last time. And it popped up with this little box that asked me if I wanted to see relevant ads or less relevant ads. And so it's basically giving me the choice. It's like, you're going to get ads. There's nothing you can do about that because that's how Twitter survives. So would you like us to pay attention to who you are and what you do and make the ads more relevant to the things that you've demonstrated a desire toward? Or would you like us to just randomly throw ads up there that are less relevant but still somehow connected? I chose less relevant, but there's no opt-out. There's no option to say, no, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $10 a month to show me no ads. I will be glad to pay you $10 to use this service and to never see an ad. I do that with YouTube, by the way. I pay YouTube a premium subscription so that there are no ads that run during any of the videos that I watch. Now, I shouldn't say this because we do garner a small amount of money here at BillWhittle.com from people who watch ads that run before and after our videos. But I hope we all rethink this process and realize that we are the product that's being sold here and that we should have some control over how our image and likeness, so to speak, our mental image is being used, and be able to say no if no is the right answer.
I spent about 25 years of my life in Florida. I went to the University of Florida. I remember once when I was in Key West during one of their many revelries, I spoke to a conch, a Key West native, and he said, the reason there's so many weirdos here is that Florida's the bottom of the country, and anybody who's kind of loose gets shaken out like a pachinko ball, and they end up down here. And this is the southern part of Florida, so this is where the weirdest of the weird are. I'm going to just take I'm going to take 30 seconds to tell you my favorite old Florida man story. I was at the University of Florida. I'd gone back there, and I'd done some flying, and I got a chance to ride with the incredible helicopter emergency evacuation guys at Shands Teaching Hospital. First call we went to was one exactly why you needed a hospital. Helicopter, a guy dove off the edge of an embankment and didn't know there was concrete underneath, and he broke his neck. That helicopter ride was great. But the second one later that day was to go a little bit north, just out of Alachua County, and pick up a guy. We landed in a cemetery, which is kind of cool. And out comes Florida Man. I mean, it is Florida Man. He was probably 28 years old, incredible tan, blonde mullet, beer gut, this kind of thing. He's got his hand bandaged. He gets in the back of the medical evac helicopter, which they called for because they knew this guy wasn't going to pay his bills. So let's just let Alachua County and the University of Florida pay for this one. And as we're on our way back, he's talking on the headsets. I'm in the front right seat. And he says, I said, what happened? He says, I got bit by a snake. Really? He says, yeah, I've always been good with animals, he said, as he's being choppered into to the hospital for his anti-venom shot. But having lived in Florida as long as I did, the town, the city, the state did all have a reputation. And I cannot tell you how proud I am of Florida lately, and especially under this governor. This governor has done everything in the modern era about as well as it can be done. And we've faced some big challenges in the last several years. For the governor of Florida to basically be willing to take on the tech giants is, to me, yet another reason to be proud of that state that often gave you reasons to be a little bit ashamed of it. What I would like to see is I would like to see a lawsuit. I'd like to see a lawsuit brought by a state, and I'd like to see other states join that lawsuit. I'd like to see 5 or 6 states, Texas, some other states that still have some sense of individual freedom. And I'd like them to sue these guys. And I'd like to sue them so much that it becomes clear to them. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it'd be nice. I'd like to sue them. I'd like to sue them so badly that the people that run these companies will be forced to do the unthinkable. I like to think that you could scare the guys that run Google enough so that they would simply provide a search engine that reliably returned information and made them billions and billions of dollars. I'd like to think you could sue Zuckerberg to the point where all Facebook did was connect people to their relatives. And I like to think that you could sue the people responsible for the YouTube subdivision of Google into simply hosting videos that have advertisements that make a ton of money and not have to socially engineer everything to match their insipid, puerile, and tyrannical political operations that have endangered the security of this country and the freedom of this country in a way that nothing has, I think, since the founding. That's what I'd like to see. So, Florida man, I'm on your side 100%. And if we see more of this kind of thing, maybe we'll remember the 10th Amendment the next time we start thinking about all those swell amendments in the Bill of Rights that we like so much. Look it up. Just Google it. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Right Angle.